So shortly after I took office, before I had gray hair, I said that these cyber threats were one of the most serious economic national security challenges that we face as a nation, and I made confronting them a priority. And given the complexity of these threats, I believe we have to be guided by some basic principles. So let me share those with you today. First, this has to be a shared mission. So much of our computer networks and critical infrastructure are in the private sector. Which means government cannot do this alone. But the fact is that the private sector can't do it alone either. Because it's government that often has the latest information on new threats. There's only one way to defend America from these cyber threats. And that is through government and industry working together, sharing appropriate information as true partners. Second, we have to focus on our unique strengths. Government has many capabilities, but it's not appropriate or even possible. For government to secure the computer networks of private businesses. Many of the companies who are here today are cutting edge, but the private sector doesn't always. Have the capabilities needed during a cyber attack, the situational awareness. Or the ability to warn other companies in real time, or the capacity to coordinate a response across companies and sectors. So we're going to have to be smart and efficient and focus on what each sector does best. And then do it together. Third, we're going to have to constantly evolve. The first computer viruses hit personal computers in the early 1980s. And essentially, we've been in a cyber arms race ever since. We design new defenses, and then hackers and criminals design new ways to penetrate them. Whether it's phishing or botnets, spyware or malware, and now ransomware. These attacks are getting more and more sophisticated every day. So we've got to be just as fast and flexible and nimble in constantly evolving our defenses. And fourth, and most importantly, in all our work we have to make sure we are protecting the privacy and civil liberty of the American people. And we grapple with these issues in government. We've pursued important reforms to make sure we are respecting people's privacy as well as ensuring our national security. And the private sector wrestles with this as well. When consumers share their personal information with companies, they deserve to know that it's going to be protected. When government and industry share information about cyber threats, we've got to do so in a way that safeguards your personal information. When people go online, we shouldn't have to forfeit the basic privacy we're entitled to as Americans. In recent years, we've worked to put these principles into practice. And as part of our comprehensive strategy, we've boosted our defenses in government. We're sharing more information with the private sector to help those companies defend themselves. We're working with industry to use what we call a cybersecurity framework to prevent, respond to, and recover from attacks when they happen. And, by the way, I recently went to the National Cybersecurity Communications Integration Center. Which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, where representatives from government and the private sector monitor cyber threats 24/7. And so defending against cyber threats, just like terrorism or other threats. Is one more reason that we are calling on Congress, not to engage in politics. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue, but work to make sure that our security is safeguarded and that we fully fund the Department of Homeland Security, because it has great responsibilities in this area. So we're making progress, and I've recently announced new actions to keep up this momentum. We've called for a single national standard so Americans know within 30 days if your information has been stolen. This month, we'll be proposing legislation that we call a Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. To give Americans some baseline protections, like the right to decide what personal data companies collect from you. And the right to know how companies are using that information. We've proposed the Student Digital Privacy Act, which is modeled on the landmark law here in California, because today's amazing educational technologies should be used to teach our students and not collect data for marketing to students. And we've also taken new steps to strengthen our cybersecurity, proposing new legislation to promote greater information sharing between government and the private sector. Including liability protections for companies that share information about cyber threats. Today, I'm once again calling on Congress to come together and get this done. And this week, we announced the creation of our new Cyber Threat Intelligence Integration Center. Just like we do with terrorist threats, we're going to have a single entity that's analyzing and integrating and quickly sharing intelligence about cyber threats across government so we can act on all those threats even faster. And today, we're taking an additional step, which is why there's a desk here. You were wondering, I'm sure. I'm signing a new executive order to promote even more information sharing about cyber threats. Both within the private sector and between government and the private sector. And it will encourage more companies and industries to set up. Organizations hubs so you can share information with each other. It will call for a common set of standards, including protections for privacy and civil liberties. So that government can share threat information with these hubs more easily. And it can help make it easier for companies to get the classified. Cybersecurity threat information that they need to protect their companies. I want to acknowledge, by the way, that the companies who are represented here are stepping up as well. The Cyber Threat Alliance, which includes companies like Palo Alto Networks and Symantec. Are going to work with us to share more information under this new executive order. You've got companies from Apple to Intel, from Bank of America to PG&E. Who are going to use the cybersecurity framework to strengthen their own defenses. As part of our Buy Secure initiative. Visa and MasterCard and American Express and others are going to make their transactions more secure. Naughty OnStar is joining companies that are giving their company's customers another weapon to battle identity theft. And that's free access to their credit scores. And more companies are moving to new, stronger technologies to authenticate user identities. Like biometrics, because it's just too easy for hackers to figure out usernames and passwords, like password or 123457. I've changed them since then. So this summit is an example of what we need more of all of. Us working together to do what none of us can achieve alone. And it is difficult. Some of the challenges I've described today have defied solutions for years. And I want to say very clearly that, as somebody who is a former constitutional law teacher, and somebody who deeply values his privacy and his family's privacy, although I chose the wrong job for that, but will be a private citizen again, and cares deeply about this, I have to tell you that grappling with how government protects the American people from adverse events while at the same time making sure that government itself is not abusing its capabilities is hard. The cyber world is sort of the wild, wild west. And to some degree, we're asked to be the sheriff. When something like Sony happens, people want to know, what can government do about this? If information is being shared by terrorists in the cyber world and an attack happens, people want to know, are there ways of stopping that from happening? By necessity, that means government has its own significant capabilities in the cyber world. But then people, rightly, ask, well, what safeguards do we have against government intruding on our own privacy? And it's hard, and it constantly evolves because the technology so often outstrips whatever. Rules and structures and standards have been put in place. Which means that government has to be constantly self-critical and we have to be able to have an open debate about it. But we're all here today because we know that we're going to have to break through some of these. Barriers that are holding us back if we are going to continue to thrive in this remarkable new world. We all know what we need to do. We have to build stronger defenses and disrupt more attacks. We have to make cyberspace safer. We have to improve cooperation across the board. And, by the way, this is not just here in America. But internationally, which also, by the way, makes things complicated because a lot of countries don't necessarily share our investment or our commitment to openness, and we have to try to navigate that. But this should not be an ideological issue. And that's one thing I want to emphasize, this is not a Democratic issue, or a Republican issue. This is not a liberal or conservative issue. Everybody is online, and everybody is vulnerable. The business leaders here want their privacy and their children protected. Just like the consumer and privacy advocates here want America to keep leading the world in technology and be safe from attacks. So I'm hopeful that through this forum and the work that we do subsequently, that we're able to generate ideas and best practices. and that the work of the summit can help guide our planning and execution for years to come.